Businessman hires elderly janitor out of pity. But what he discovers about her past changes everything. The brisk autumn air filled the streets of New York City as Nathaniel Grayson stepped out of his sleek black sedan, adjusting his tailored suit. He had just moved into the top floor of a shiny new building in the heart of Manhattan, where ambition pulsated in every corner. The glass facade reflected the sunlight, shimmering like the dreams of countless entrepreneurs who dared to conquer the unforgiving city. Today marked the launch of his startup, and he could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on him, both from within and from his family, who had built a legacy of success. As Nathaniel entered the office, he was greeted by a flurry of activity. Young employees hustled around, their faces illuminated by the glow of computer screens, their eyes glued to spreadsheets and presentations. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the buzz of ideas and the clacking of keyboards. He could almost taste the ambition in the air, a palpable energy that drove him forward. He smiled at his coworkers, but there was an emptiness behind his eyes, a sense of isolation amidst the chaos. "Morning, Nathaniel," called out Jenna, his assistant, as she rushed past him, carrying a stack of documents. "Big day ahead, huh?" "Yeah, just another day in paradise," he replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He could feel the pressure mounting, the need to impress investors, to surpass the expectations of his family, to prove that he was worthy of the name Grayson. As he made his way to his office, Nathaniel took a moment to glance around at the sleek, modern design of the space. White walls, minimalist furniture, and artwork that screamed innovation decorated the place. Yet, despite the aesthetic appeal, it felt cold and impersonal. It was an environment that thrived on competition, where personal connections seemed to take a backseat to profit margins. Just then, he noticed a figure quietly moving about the office. Mildred Hawthorne, the newly hired cleaner, was diligently dusting the shelves in the corner. In stark contrast to the sleek surroundings, she was a petite woman, her silver hair neatly pulled back into a bun, and her eyes sparkled with warmth. She wore a simple, faded cardigan and a pair of well-worn sneakers, which seemed to tell stories of their own. "Good morning, Ms. Hawthorne," Nathaniel called out, his voice breaking through the sterile atmosphere. "Good morning, sir," Mildred replied with a gentle smile, pausing her work to meet his gaze. "I hope your day is going well so far." "It's just getting started," he said, glancing at the clock on the wall. "I'm excited about what today holds." Mildred nodded knowingly, her eyes twinkling with an understanding that belied her position. "That's wonderful to hear. Just remember to take a moment for yourself amidst all the hustle. Life is too precious to rush through." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her unexpected wisdom. He had grown accustomed to the relentless pace of his world, where moments of reflection were often seen as a sign of weakness. "I'll keep that in mind," he said, chuckling softly. "I suppose I could use some of that advice." As the day progressed, Nathaniel found himself stealing glances at Mildred as she moved through the office, her presence a stark contrast to the frenetic energy around him. While his colleagues were glued to their screens, Mildred moved with grace, her gentle demeanor creating a sense of calm in the otherwise chaotic environment. She hummed a soft tune as she worked, and Nathaniel couldn't help but feel drawn to the serenity she exuded. Later, as the clock ticked closer to noon, Nathaniel found himself wandering into the break room, where he spotted Mildred cleaning the countertops. "Can I get you anything?" he asked, surprising himself with the offer. "Coffee? Water?" "Oh, you're too kind," she replied, her cheeks flushing slightly. "But I'm just fine. I actually prefer tea. It's more soothing, don't you think?" "Tea it is," he said, moving to the cabinet where the tea bags were stored. He paused for a moment, observing her as she worked. "You know, Mildred, I've noticed you seem quite content in your work. Most people would just rush through it, but you take your time." She looked up, her expression thoughtful. "Well, dear, I believe that every task, no matter how small, deserves care. It's easy to forget that in a world that values speed over quality. Besides, I find joy in the little things like making a space cleaner and more inviting for others." Nathaniel considered her response, feeling a flicker of admiration for her perspective. "That's a refreshing way to look at it. I often feel like I'm just chasing after the next big thing without stopping to appreciate what's right in front of me," he admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. Mildred smiled softly, her eyes glistening with understanding. "You know, it's easy to get caught up in ambition, especially in a city like this. But sometimes it's the simple moments that hold the most beauty." "Wise words," Nathaniel replied, feeling as though he had stumbled upon a hidden gem in her wisdom. He poured hot water over the tea bag, letting it steep as he watched her work. The break room filled with the aroma of the brewing tea, and he felt an unexpected sense of calm wash over him. After a brief silence, Nathaniel ventured, So, Mildred, what brought you to this line of work? She paused, her gaze drifting toward the window, where the vibrant autumn leaves danced outside. Life has a way of leading us down unexpected paths, she began, her voice steady yet tinged with nostalgia. I was once an artist, you know. I had dreams of creating beauty through my paintings, but life had other plans for me. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow, intrigued. An artist? That's fascinating. What happened? Mildred hesitated, her expression clouding momentarily. I had a family tragedy that changed everything, she said softly. I lost my daughter many years ago. After that, I put my brushes down and turned my focus to supporting the family I had left. I found solace in cleaning, in creating order where there was chaos. Nathaniel's heart sank at her words. I'm so sorry to hear that. It must have been incredibly difficult. It was, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. But I've learned to find beauty in the world again, even in the simplest of tasks. It's a different kind of art, I suppose. Nathaniel felt a wave of introspection wash over him. Here was this woman who had once dreamt of painting the world, reduced to sweeping floors and cleaning desks. Yet, there was a resilience in her spirit that he couldn't quite shake off. He felt compelled to know more about her journey, to understand the depths of her story beyond the confines of the office. Now, do you ever think about picking up the brush again? He asked gently. Creating something beautiful? Mildred turned to him, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of nostalgia and uncertainty. I do sometimes. But it's hard to revisit those dreams when they feel so far away. It's easier to keep my past in the past. Nathaniel nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I get that. Sometimes it feels like we're expected to follow a certain path. But what if there's more to life than just that? As they shared this moment of connection, Nathaniel realized that Mildred's presence was a reminder of the importance of looking beyond the immediate rush of life. There was something profoundly grounding about her, a softness that contrasted sharply with the relentless drive that defined his world. In her, he saw a flicker of hope, a possibility of reconciling ambition with a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. Thank you, Mildred, he said, his voice sincere. You've given me a lot to think about today, with a gentle smile. She replied, Just remember, dear, it's never too late to pursue what makes your heart sing. You might be surprised by what you find. As Nathaniel finished his tea, he felt a spark of inspiration igniting within him, an unfamiliar sensation that perhaps, just perhaps, there was more to success than the pursuit of profit. In the presence of this humble woman, he sensed a shift in his perspective, a call to embrace the richness of life beyond the confines of ambition. Nathaniel sat at his sleek modern desk, surrounded by the buzz of his new startup. The office was filled with light, the large windows revealing a vibrant fall day outside. Yet, despite the sun shining brightly, Nathaniel felt an unusual heaviness in his chest. The expectations from his family loomed large, a constant reminder of the ambitious path laid out before him. He was determined to succeed, to prove himself, but the pressure was mounting, and sometimes he felt lost in the chaos of it all. As he glanced around the room, his eyes landed on Mildred Hawthorne, the elderly cleaning lady he had recently hired. She moved gracefully through the office, her hands deftly working to keep the space spotless. Unlike the sharp, sterile environment that surrounded her, she exuded a warmth that seemed to soften the edges of the room. Nathaniel couldn't help but watch her as she worked, her gentle demeanor offering a strange contrast to the cold, competitive atmosphere of the startup world. Mildred, Nathaniel called, his curiosity getting the better of him. She paused in her task, wiping her hands on her apron as she turned to face him. Her silver hair caught the light, framing her face beautifully. Yes, Mr. Grayson, she replied, her voice soft yet clear. I've been meaning to ask, he began. What brought you to New York? I imagine you've seen quite a bit in your time. Mildred hesitated, a flicker of something, perhaps caution crossing her eyes. Oh, just life, I suppose, she answered, a slight smile playing on her lips. I've been here for a long while now. There's a certain charm to the city, you know? Nathaniel nodded, intrigued, but sensing her reluctance to delve deeper. I can only imagine. I've only been here a few years myself, and it's been quite the experience. Experience can come in many forms, she said, her gaze drifting out the window, as if she were peering into another time. Some good, some not so much. He wanted to press her for more, to understand the woman behind the apron, who seemed to carry a lifetime of stories within her. Yet he sensed that she wasn't ready to share. Well, I appreciate the work you do here. It's easy to overlook the small things, but they matter. Thank you, Mr. Grayson. I believe every job has its importance, Mildred said, her eyes meeting his with a sincerity that caught him off guard. Nathaniel returned to his work, but his mind kept wandering back to Mildred. There was something about her that intrigued him. A quiet strength, perhaps, or a depth that was hidden beneath the surface. He found himself stealing glances at her as she moved about the office, her movements calm and deliberate, as if she were in a world of her own, far removed from the frantic energy of the startup around her. Later that day, while organizing some files, Nathaniel stumbled upon an old newspaper clipping tucked between the pages of a dusty book he had picked up at a flea market. The faded article featured a striking image of a young woman, her face familiar yet distant. As he read the headline, his heart raced. Local artist gains national attention. The name beneath the photo was Mildred Hawthorne. Intrigued, Nathaniel carried the clipping to Mildred, who was at her station, meticulously dusting the shelves. "Mildred, I found this," he said, holding the article out to her. "Is this you?" She turned, her expression shifting from curiosity to surprise, then to something deeper, perhaps apprehension. "Oh my," she murmured, taking the article from him. Her fingers traced the edges of the paper, and for a moment, Nathaniel saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes, quickly replaced by a veil of sadness. "I was young then," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That was a lifetime ago. What happened?" Nathaniel asked, genuinely curious. "You had such talent. Why did you stop?" Mildred hesitated, her gaze falling to the floor. "Life's circumstances can lead us down different paths," she replied, her voice steadied by a hint of resolve. "And I lost everything that mattered to me, and with it, my art." "I'm sorry to hear that," Nathaniel said softly, feeling a pang of empathy. "If you don't mind me asking, what happened?" She looked away, seemingly lost in her memories. "I had a daughter, a bright light in my life. But one day, she was gone, just like that. An accident. After that, I couldn't bring myself to paint anymore. The joy had left me." Nathaniel felt a lump in his throat as he processed her words. He had never imagined that the gentle woman who cleaned his office had endured such profound loss. "I can only imagine how difficult that must have been for you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Mildred nodded, her expression distant. "It's a pain that never truly goes away. You learn to live with it, but you carry it with you." "Do you ever paint anymore?" he asked, hopeful that there might still be a spark of creativity within her. She shook her head slowly, a sad smile gracing her lips. "No, I haven't touched a brush in years. It feels like a lifetime ago." Nathaniel felt a surge of determination. "You should consider it again," he said, the words spilling from his mouth before he could hold them back. "Your talent shouldn't be forgotten. It deserves to be seen." Mildred's eyes widened, and she laughed softly, the sound tinged with disbelief. "Oh dear, at my age? It's too late for me." "It's never too late," Nathaniel insisted, a fire igniting within him. "You have so much to offer. I want to help you share your art with the world." She remained silent, her gaze drifting back to the article, lost in thought. Nathaniel could see the struggle within her, a battle between the past and the possibility of reclaiming her passion. He wanted nothing more than to help her find her way back. "Mildred, what if we organized an exhibition, just to showcase your work? You could reconnect with your artistry, and who knows? Maybe it would inspire others too," he proposed, his excitement palpable. Her expression turned serious, and she set the article down on the desk. "Nathaniel, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I'm not sure I can do that. The fear of rejection, the criticism, it's overwhelming." "Everyone faces those fears," he said, leaning forward earnestly. "But think about it. This could be your chance to reclaim your voice. You deserve that." Mildred glanced at him, uncertainty etched on her face. "It's been so long since I've shared my work. What if no one cares? What if they don't like it?" "They will care," he replied, his conviction unwavering. "And if they don't, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're doing something for yourself. You owe it to yourself to try." As she considered his words, Nathaniel felt a sense of urgency to push her toward rediscovery. He wanted to believe in her as fiercely as he believed in his own ambitions. In that moment, he realized that his own life was wrapped in the same superficiality he had been criticizing. He needed to find meaning beyond profits and success. Perhaps that was the lesson Mildred was destined to teach him. Finally, Mildred sighed, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and hope. "I'll think about it, Nathaniel, but I can't promise anything." "That's all I ask," he replied, a smile breaking across his face. Just think about it." As she returned to her cleaning, he felt a strange sense of connection between them, a bridge between their worlds, forged by understanding and the shared human experience of loss, hope, and the desire for redemption. Nathaniel Grayson, the ambitious businessman, and Mildred Hawthorne, the artist hidden in the shadows of her past, were on the brink of an unexpected journey, one that could change both their lives forever. As the sun filtered through the large windows of the modern office, Nathaniel Grayson sat at his desk, the hum of productivity surrounding him. Yet his mind wandered beyond the spreadsheets and projections. He glanced toward the corner of the room where Mildred Hawthorne diligently scrubbed the floor. Her gentle demeanor contrasted sharply with the high-stakes environment of his startup. There was something about her presence that intrigued him, a calmness that seemed out of place amidst the chaotic ambitions of young entrepreneurs. One afternoon, after gathering the courage, Nathaniel approached Mildred as she sorted through her cleaning supplies. "Mildred," he began, his voice tentative, "what did you do before you started working here?" She paused, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "Oh, just the usual things," she replied, her eyes darting away as if searching for an escape. Cleaning, cooking, keeping busy. Nathaniel wasn't convinced. There was a depth in her eyes that suggested a life rich with stories, yet she seemed determined to keep them hidden. "I mean, before that, you seem different. Like you've seen things that matter." Her expression hardened slightly, but there was a softness in her gaze as well. "I've had my share of life, that's for sure. But I prefer to focus on the present," she replied, brushing her hands on her apron. "The past is just that, the past." Despite her resistance, Nathaniel was drawn to her mystery. A few days later, while tidying up his cluttered office, he stumbled upon an old newspaper clipping. The black and white photo featured a younger Mildred, standing proudly next to a well-known artist. The headline read, "Local Talent Emerges. Mildred Hawthorne's art captivates the city." His heart raced as he realized the significance of the piece. He had to know more. The next day, he confronted her as she dusted the shelves. "Mildred, I found this," he said, holding the clipping aloft. "You were an artist?" Her face went pale. "Oh, Nathaniel, please don't." "Why not? This is amazing. Why didn't you tell me?" he pressed, excitement bubbling within him. She sighed, a deep, weary exhale that seemed to carry the weight of years. "Because it's complicated. I had dreams once, but life had other plans." "Complicated how?" Nathaniel pursued, his curiosity piqued. Mildred hesitated, her fingers trembling slightly on the duster. "I lost my daughter in an accident," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It shattered me. I couldn't bear the thought of creating art when my heart was broken." Nathaniel's heart ached at her confession. "I'm so sorry, Mildred. I didn't know. I can't imagine what you went through." She looked at him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "It's been years, Nathaniel. I thought I had buried that part of my life. I thought I could move on. But it's still a part of you," Nathaniel insisted gently. "You can't just erase it. Your talent deserves to be shared, and maybe it could help you heal." Mildred shook her head, the pain evident in her expression. "Art was my escape, my passion. But after losing her, I couldn't pick up a brush again. It felt wrong." "Have you ever thought about picking it up again?" he asked, his voice filled with warmth. "Just for yourself?" "I haven't had the courage," she admitted, her fingers tracing the edge of the newspaper clipping. "Yeah, what if I fail again? What if I'm not good enough? The world has changed, and I'm just an old woman now." Nathaniel could see the struggle in her eyes, the battle between her past aspirations and her present fears. "You're not just an old woman, Mildred. You're a remarkable person with a story to tell. Your art could inspire others just like you inspired that artist." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Your talent is still there, waiting to be discovered again." Mildred remained silent, lost in thought. Nathaniel felt a surge of determination. "Please, let me show you how much your art matters. Let's do something together." "Like what?" she asked, skepticism lacing her voice. "An exhibition," he proposed, his enthusiasm bubbling over. "I could help organize it. We could showcase your work, tell your story. You'd be surprised at how many people would want to see it." Mildred's eyes widened in disbelief. "Nathaniel? No, I couldn't. What if no one comes? What if they don't like it? I'm not ready for that kind of exposure." "But what if they do come? What if they love it?" he countered, leaning closer, his intensity palpable. "You owe it to yourself to try. You've spent so many years hiding. You deserve to be seen." As she pondered his words, Nathaniel watched the flicker of hope and fear dance across her face. "I've been out of the game for so long, Nathaniel. What if I'm not the same artist I once was? What if I've lost it all? Art is about growth and change," he reassured her. "You have a lifetime of experiences now. That will only enrich your work. It's a chance to reconnect with that part of yourself, Mildred. Don't you want to see what you can create?" She looked down, her heart racing. The prospect terrified her, yet something deep within stirred. "I don't know, Nathaniel. It's been years since I've even thought about painting." "Then let's start small," he suggested. "Just take one step. Paint something for yourself." No pressure. Just you, your brush, and your canvas. Mildred felt the weight of his gaze, filled with encouragement. I'll think about it, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Days turned into weeks, and Nathaniel noticed the change in Mildred. She moved with a newfound energy, her usual routine of cleaning now punctuated by moments of contemplation. Nathaniel frequently caught her gazing out the window, lost in thought. He could tell that the idea of painting was taking root in her mind, and he felt a flicker of hope. One afternoon, she approached him with a hesitant smile. Nathaniel, I might have an idea for a piece, just a small one. Really? He exclaimed, his excitement palpable. That's fantastic. Do you have a canvas? I have some old supplies at home, she replied, a hint of determination creeping into her voice. I'll see if I can find them. Just remember, it's for you, Nathaniel encouraged. No one else. Just let your heart guide you. As Mildred left his office, Nathaniel couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. He had planted a seed of hope in her, and he was eager to see it bloom. Little did he know, the journey ahead would require more than just courage. It would demand a reckoning with the past, a confrontation with the loss that had shaped her life. But for now, there was a glimmer of possibility in her steps, and he was determined to nurture it. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over Nathaniel Grayson's modern office space, he felt a surge of determination. The walls were adorned with sleek artwork, a testament to his ambition and the vision he had for his startup. But it was the unexpected presence of Mildred Hawthorne, the elderly cleaning lady, that had begun to shift something deep within him. One afternoon, Nathaniel found himself standing in front of the large windows, staring out at the bustling city below, his mind racing with thoughts of his impending business decisions. Just then, Mildred entered the room, her cart rolling softly behind her. She was humming a gentle tune, a stark contrast to the competitive atmosphere that enveloped the office. Mildred, Nathaniel called out, turning to face her. Can I ask you something? Of course, dear, she replied, her voice warm and inviting as she dusted off a shelf. I've been thinking about your art, the pieces you mentioned the other day. Have you ever considered showcasing them? I really believe the world should see what you can create. Mildred paused, her hands stilled, and a shadow flickered across her face. Oh, Nathaniel, that was a long time ago. I don't think anyone would be interested in what an old lady like me has to offer. But it's not just about age, Nathaniel insisted, stepping closer, his eyes earnest. It's about the story, the passion behind the art. You have a talent that deserves to be recognized. I want to help you share it. She shook her head gently, a bittersweet smile gracing her lips. You're very kind, but I've put that part of my life behind me. It's too painful to revisit. Nathaniel felt the weight of her words settle like a heavy fog around them. He could sense the fear hidden behind her reluctance. What if we could do this together? I could organize an exhibition, we could invite people, share your story. It could be liberating. Mildred looked at him, her blue eyes reflecting a mix of hope and fear. What if it doesn't go well? What if no one comes? What if they don't like my work? Then we'll face it together, Nathaniel replied, his voice low but firm. You won't be alone. I promise to be right there with you no matter what happens. What you're asking is a big step, she whispered almost to herself. I've been away from that world for so long. What if I'm not good enough anymore? You are more than good enough, he said, his conviction palpable. You're extraordinary. Your art is a part of you, and it deserves to be seen. Think of it as a way to reclaim your past, to reconnect with who you are. Mildred bit her lip, contemplating his words. A silence enveloped them, thick and heavy, filled with unspoken fears and dreams. Finally, she nodded slowly, an ember of determination sparking in her eyes. All right, Nathaniel, I'll think about it. Great. That's all I ask, he said, a smile breaking across his face. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss the details. I'll start making some arrangements. As she left the office, Nathaniel felt a thrill of excitement. He had seen a glimpse of the woman behind the years of hardship, and he was determined to help her find her voice again. The next day, as the morning light streamed through the windows, Nathaniel prepared a small presentation for Mildred. He had gathered images of art exhibitions, ideas for invitations, and even a list of potential venues. When she arrived, he greeted her with a bright smile. Mildred, I'm so glad you're here. I've been working on some ideas for the exhibition, he said, gesturing to the papers spread across his desk. She approached him cautiously, her heart racing. You really think this is a good idea? I know it is, he replied confidently, motioning for her to sit. Here, take a look. I envision your art as the centerpiece of something truly special. As she scanned the materials, her fingers trembled slightly. But what if people don't understand my work? Or worse, what if they judge me? Nathaniel leaned forward, his expression earnest. Then we'll tell your story. Your art isn't just colors on canvas. It's a reflection of your life, your experiences. It's powerful. Let's share that with the world. Mildred's gaze softened as she absorbed his words. You really believe that? I do, he affirmed. And I want to help you find the courage to believe it too. She took a deep breath, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and fear. All right, Nathaniel. I'm willing to try, but you have to promise me one thing. Anything, he replied eagerly. Promise me that you won't let me back out at the last minute, she said, a hint of mischief in her voice. He chuckled, relieved to see her spirit returning. I promise. We're in this together, Mildred. As they began to plan the exhibition, a bond formed between them, rooted in shared dreams and vulnerabilities. Nathaniel found himself inspired by Mildred's strength, while she felt a flicker of hope reignite within her. In the weeks that followed, they worked tirelessly, crafting flyers, reaching out to local artists, and assembling a small team to help with the logistics. Mildred began to pull her old paintings from their hiding places, dusting off the canvases that had long been forgotten. Each piece she unveiled felt like a piece of her heart, and the more she shared, the more she felt a sense of liberation washing over her. One afternoon, as they sat surrounded by Mildred's artwork, she looked at Nathaniel with gratitude shining in her eyes. You've brought me back to life, you know that? He smiled, touched by her words. You did that yourself, Mildred. I just showed you the door. Still, she said, her voice filled with emotion, I never thought I would have this chance again. Thank you for believing in me. Always, Nathaniel replied, his gaze sincere. Let's make this exhibition unforgettable. With newfound determination, Mildred began to embrace her past, stepping closer to the woman she once was. As the exhibition drew nearer, she could feel the excitement and fear intertwining within her. But this time, she was not alone. With Nathaniel by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Nathaniel sat at the long, sleek conference table in the glass-walled meeting room of his startup, a place that echoed ambition and the relentless pursuit of success. The sun streamed in, casting sharp shadows across the polished surface, but it did little to illuminate the growing tension in the air. He was surrounded by a group of investors, their expressions a mix of skepticism and impatience. They were seasoned players in the game of finance, their eyes trained on profit margins and growth metrics, not on the human stories that often lay beneath the surface. Look, Nathaniel, said Mark, burly man with thinning hair and a penchant for blue blazers, leaning back in his chair. You're a smart guy, but we need to focus. This is a business venture, not a charity event. The numbers have to make sense. Nathaniel's stomach twisted. He had been pouring his heart and soul into the upcoming art exhibition for Mildred, the elderly cleaning lady whose talent had captivated him. He had envisioned the event as a bridge between art and commerce, a way to showcase Mildred's work while also proving that there was room for stories in a world dominated by numbers. But now, as he faced the investors, he felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. I understand that, Mark, Nathaniel replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. But this exhibition isn't just about making money. It's about giving a voice to someone who has been silenced for too long. Mildred's story is powerful, and her art deserves to be seen. Powerful stories don't pay the bills, Nathaniel, chimed in Linda, a sharp-witted investor known for her no-nonsense demeanor. You need to convince us that this will yield a return. We're not looking to fund a passion project. Nathaniel clenched his fists under the table, trying to suppress the frustration bubbling inside him. He had seen the fire in Mildred's eyes when she spoke about her art, the way her hands trembled with excitement as she shared memories of her past. He believed in her, and he wanted to share that belief with the world. But how could he convey that to a group of people who only cared about spreadsheets and projections? Linda, I get it, I really do, he said, attempting to keep his tone calm. But what if I told you that art can be a catalyst for change? What if we could create a narrative that resonates with people on a human level? Imagine the press coverage, the community support. This isn't just an exhibition, it's a movement. Mark raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. A movement, huh? Sounds great, but what's your fallback plan if it flops? You'll be on the hook for this, not us. Frustration flared in Nathaniel's chest, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced down to see a message from Mildred. Lucas is struggling. I wish I could help him find his passion. The text struck a chord deep within him. Mildred's grandson, Lucas, had been drifting through life, lost and uncertain of his future. It reminded Nathaniel of his own struggles, the pressure of expectations from his family that had so often felt suffocating. I need to think about this, Nathaniel said, his mind racing. I'll get back to you. He stood up abruptly, the decision to leave the meeting feeling like a small act of rebellion in a world that demanded conformity. He left the room, heart pounding with a mix of determination and uncertainty. As he stepped outside, the crisp autumn air hit his face, invigorating him. He pulled out his phone and dialed Mildred's number. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm and familiar. Nathaniel? Is everything all right? Hey, Mildred. I just came from a meeting with the investors, he said, trying to keep the frustration from creeping into his voice. They're not on board with the exhibition. They only care about profits. Oh dear, Mildred replied, her tone softening with concern. I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't want to be a burden to you. You're not a burden, Nathaniel exclaimed, surprising himself with the intensity of his response. Your art is incredible, and it deserves to be seen. I just need to find a way to make them understand that. Maybe they just don't see the beauty in it, Mildred suggested, her voice thoughtful. Sometimes people are too caught up in their own lives to appreciate what really matters. He took a deep breath, her words resonating with him. You're right. I need to show them that your story, your journey, is the heart of this exhibition. Just then, a figure caught his eye across the street. It was Lucas, Mildred's grandson, leaning against a lamppost, looking dejected. Nathaniel's heart ached for the young man, who seemed lost in a world that had little space for his dreams. Mildred, I think I need to talk to Lucas. He's here, and I believe he could use some encouragement. Please do, she urged. He's been struggling to find his direction. Sometimes all he needs is a little push. Nathaniel hung up and crossed the street, approaching Lucas with a friendly smile. Hey, Lucas, what's going on? Lucas looked up, his expression a mix of surprise and wariness. Oh, hey, Nathaniel. Just thinking, I guess. Nathaniel could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the same uncertainty that had plagued him for much of his own life. You know, I was just talking to your grandmother. She mentioned you've been feeling a bit lost. Yeah, well, I don't really know what I want to do, Lucas admitted, shoving his hands into his pockets. It's like everyone around me has their life figured out, and I'm just here. Nathaniel nodded, recalling his own struggles with expectations. I get that. It's tough when everyone has their own path laid out for them. But you have to find your own way. What are you passionate about? Lucas shrugged, his gaze dropping to the ground. I used to love drawing, but I haven't picked up a pencil in forever. Life just kind of happened. Why not give it another shot? Nathaniel suggested, his voice earnest. Your grandmother has an exhibition coming up, and her art is incredible. Maybe you could find inspiration in that. Lucas looked up, curiosity flickering in his eyes. Really? She's doing an exhibition? Yeah, Nathaniel said, his excitement growing. Her story's amazing, and she's got a real gift. I think it could help you find your own passion again. I don't know, Lucas said, his voice tinged with doubt. What if I'm not good enough? Mildred faced those same fears, Nathaniel replied, recalling the vulnerable moments they had shared. But she's taking a leap of faith, and I believe you can too. It's never too late to explore what you love. For a moment, silence hung between them as Lucas considered Nathaniel's words. Finally, he sighed, a hint of determination creeping into his voice. Okay, I'll think about it. Maybe I can try drawing again. Nathaniel smiled, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. And that's a great start. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about expressing yourself. As they parted ways, Nathaniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to fight for Mildred's dream, to show the investors that her art was more than just a financial opportunity. It was a chance to connect, to heal, and to inspire others. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he was willing to take the risk, to champion not just Mildred's art, but the stories that lay behind it, stories that could change lives. As the day of the exhibition drew closer, Nathaniel found himself juggling a whirlwind of responsibilities. The startup's demands were relentless, and the pressure was mounting. He sat at his sleek modern desk, the sunlight streaming through the glass walls of his office, illuminating the meticulously organized chaos that surrounded him. Papers were strewn about, and the buzz of phones and chatter from his coworkers filled the air. But amidst all of it, his mind was elsewhere. It was consumed with thoughts of Mildred and the upcoming exhibition. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the wall where a vibrant painting of Mildred's hung, a stunning representation of a sunset that captured the essence of hope and renewal. He'd convinced her to share her art with the world, believing it would not only heal her, but would also provide a much-needed distraction from his own troubled thoughts. Yet, as the date loomed closer, he couldn't shake the feeling that things might not go as planned. He glanced at his phone, checking the time again. "I need to talk to Mildred," he muttered under his breath. He stood up abruptly and made his way to the back of the office where the cleaning supplies were stored. It was there that he found Mildred, her gentle hands meticulously dusting the shelves. Despite her age, there was a youthful spirit in her demeanor, a spark that Nathaniel had come to admire deeply. "Mildred," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "can we talk for a moment?" She looked up, her hazel eyes meeting his with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Of course, Nathaniel. Everything all right?" He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the conversation ahead. "I've been thinking about the exhibition, and I know it's getting closer. I just wanted to check in on how you're feeling about it." Mildred paused, her hands resting on the dust rag as she considered his words. "To be honest, Nathaniel, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if no one likes my work? What if I'm just a relic of the past?" Nathaniel stepped closer, sensing her vulnerability. "You're not a relic, Mildred. You're an artist with a powerful story to tell. Your art deserves to be seen, and more importantly, it deserves to be celebrated." She sighed, a sound heavy with uncertainty. But what if I put myself out there and it all falls apart? I've been hurt before. I don't know if I can handle that again." "I understand," Nathaniel replied gently, his voice unwavering. "But you won't be alone. I'll be right there with you, every step of the way. You have a gift that can inspire others, and I believe in you." Mildred looked away, wiping a stray tear from the corner of her eye. "What if I fail? What if it's just one more disappointment in a life filled with them?" "Failure is just a stepping stone to success," he said, trying to inject some optimism into the conversation. "You've faced so much, and yet here you are, still willing to give it another shot. That takes courage, Mildred, more than most people have." She chuckled softly, but there was a tremor in her voice. "You make it sound so easy, Nathaniel, but I'm not sure I have that strength inside me anymore." "Then let me help you find it," he urged, his determination shining through. "We're in this together. You've already inspired me to rethink what's important in life. You can't imagine how much your story has touched me." Mildred smiled faintly, the warmth of his support momentarily easing her fears. "You really believe that?" "Absolutely," he replied, his eyes locking onto hers. "I've seen what your art can do. It speaks volumes, even without words. It's time for you to embrace that." With a deep breath, Mildred nodded slowly, the flicker of hope igniting in her heart. "All right, I'll try. But promise me something." "Anything," Nathaniel said, leaning in closer. "Promise me you'll be there with me no matter what happens. I don't want to feel alone in this." "I promise," he vowed, his voice firm. "I won't let you go through this alone." A sense of relief washed over Mildred, but as they continued to talk, the reality of the situation weighed heavily on Nathaniel's mind. He had his own battles to fight, particularly with the investors who were increasingly focused on profits rather than the human stories behind the art. He felt torn between his ambition and the values he had begun to develop through his connection with Mildred. Later that evening, as he sat in his office preparing for a meeting with potential investors, Nathaniel couldn't shake the apprehension building within him. He knew the stakes were high, and the pressure to deliver results was unrelenting. But it wasn't just about the exhibition anymore. It was about something deeper. His evolving identity and the realization that success could mean more than just financial gain. He glanced at the clock again, mentally preparing himself for the upcoming meeting. Just as he was about to pick up the phone, a soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Mildred, her presence a calming balm to the storm brewing inside him. "Mind if I come in?" she asked, her voice gentle yet filled with determination. "Not at all," he replied, motioning for her to enter. "I was just thinking about you." She stepped inside, her hands clasped in front of her. "I wanted to share something with you," she began, her tone serious. "I've been reflecting on what you said earlier about courage and support." Nathaniel nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I realize that I've been holding on to my fears for too long," she admitted, her voice steady. "It's time for me to let go and embrace this opportunity. I want to be vulnerable again, to let my art speak for me." A smile broke across Nathaniel's face, relief flooding through him. "That's amazing, Mildred. I knew you had it in you. But," she continued, her expression shifting slightly, "I need to know that you're going to fight for this as much as I am. I can't do it alone." Nathaniel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "You have my word. I'll do everything I can to make this exhibition a success. I want the world to see how incredible you are." "And what about your investors?" she asked, her brow furrowing with concern. "Will they understand what we're trying to accomplish?" "I'll make them understand," he assured her, his voice resolute. "Now, it might not be easy, but I believe that the right people will see the value in your story. It's not just about profits. It's about connecting with people, about inspiring them through your art. Mildred smiled, a glimmer of hope igniting in her eyes. Thank you, Nathaniel. Your faith in me means more than you know. As the two of them stood together in the office, there was a palpable shift in the air. Nathaniel felt empowered, ready to tackle the challenges ahead. He knew he had to face the investors soon, and though the thought filled him with trepidation, he also felt a newfound sense of purpose. It was no longer just about his startup. It was about helping Mildred reclaim her voice and art. Let's do this together, he said, looking into her eyes with unwavering conviction. We'll show them what real passion looks like. Mildred nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. Together, she echoed, feeling the warmth of their shared commitment. Thank you for standing by me, Nathaniel. I won't let you down. Neither will I, he promised, determination lacing his words. We're going to make this happen. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden hues across the bustling streets of New York, Nathaniel Grayson felt the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. The opening of Mildred's art exhibition was just days away, and the stakes had never been higher. He stood by the window in his office, staring out at the city that never slept, contemplating the mountain of challenges that loomed ahead. Just that morning, a scathing review had hit the local arts blog, a preemptive strike that rippled through the artistic community like a storm. The critic dismissed the upcoming exhibition as a mere gimmick, suggesting that Nathaniel was exploiting Mildred's tragic past for his own gain. The words echoed in Nathaniel's mind, gnawing at him. He knew the truth. The exhibition was about celebrating Mildred's long-buried talent, but the harsh light of public scrutiny could easily twist that narrative. Damn it, he muttered under his breath, running a hand through his hair in frustration. The art world was unforgiving, and if the critics smelled blood, they would feast on it without remorse. His phone buzzed on the desk, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a message from Mildred, and he quickly opened it, hoping for a sign of her usual resilience. Nathaniel, I'm not sure I can do this. What if they hate it? What if they hate me? His heart sank. The vulnerability in her words struck him deeply. It was one thing for him to be caught in the crossfire of criticism, but Mildred was facing a far more personal battle. He typed back quickly, trying to infuse his message with encouragement. Mildred, remember why we're doing this. Your art deserves to be seen. You deserve to be seen. Don't let one critic dictate your worth. A few moments later, his phone buzzed again. Easier said than done. I can't shake the fear. Nathaniel sighed, feeling the weight of their shared anxiety. He knew he had to do more than just reassure her through text. He needed to show her that the community was behind her, that her story resonated with others who had faced similar struggles. With a determined heart, he grabbed his jacket and headed out into the cool autumn air. The streets were alive with the sounds of honking taxis and the chatter of pedestrians. But Nathaniel was focused, his mind racing with ideas. He needed to rally support for Mildred, to prove to her that her art was not just a reflection of her past, but a beacon of hope for others. He made his way to a nearby cafe that was a hub for local artists and creatives. As he entered, the familiar smell of freshly brewed coffee greeted him, and he spotted a few friends gathered around a table in the corner. They were discussing upcoming projects, their voices animated with passion and possibility. Hey, Nathaniel, called out Sarah, a talented painter with vibrant red hair. Join us! He approached the table, his heart pounding with urgency. Guys, I need your help. It's about Mildred. The group turned their attention to him, concern etching their faces. What's going on? Asked Ben, a graphic designer known for his edgy style. Mildred is facing some serious backlash before her exhibition even opens. A critic has already written a negative piece, and it's getting to her. We need to show her that we believe in her and her art. Sarah leaned in, her expression serious. What can we do? We need to share her story, Nathaniel replied, passion igniting in his chest. I want to organize a campaign, something that highlights her journey and her art. We can use social media, create a buzz that counters the negativity. If we can get the community involved, it might help her see that she's not alone. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. I can help with social media graphics, Ben offered, already pulling out his tablet to sketch ideas. Let's make it visually striking. I can write a blog post about her journey, Sarah added, her eyes sparkling with inspiration. We'll make sure people understand who she is, beyond just the tragedy. Nathaniel felt a surge of hope. Yes, let's do it. If we can create a sense of community around her art, it will drown out the negativity. Mildred needs to know that her work matters, that it's not just a side story, but a powerful part of the narrative. As they brainstormed, Nathaniel's phone buzzed again. It was Mildred. Nathaniel, I'm scared. I don't want to feel that pain again. What if they think I'm a joke? He glanced at his friends who were deep in conversation about hashtags and images. Mildred, he typed back, you are not a joke. You are an incredible artist with a story that needs to be told. Come to the cafe. I want you to meet some friends who care about you and your art. Moments later, she replied, I'll try. Nathaniel's heart raced as he looked around the cafe, hoping to see her walk through the door. He felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement. He knew this was a pivotal moment, not just for Mildred, but for him as well. When the door swung open, a chill breeze swept through the cafe, and in walked Mildred, her face a canvas of uncertainty, but also determination. Nathaniel stood up, his heart pounding. Mildred! She smiled timidly, and he could see the flicker of apprehension in her eyes. I wasn't sure I could come. You're here now, he said, his voice steady. I want you to meet some people who are going to help us. As she approached the table, Nathaniel introduced her to his friends. This is Mildred Hawthorne, the extraordinary artist I've been telling you about. Wow, it's an honor to meet you, Sarah said, her voice warm and welcoming. We've heard so much about your art. Mildred blinked, surprised. You have? Absolutely, Ben chimed in. We want to help you share your story. We're planning a campaign to highlight your journey and your work. You're not just an artist, you're an inspiration. Mildred's eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and hope washing over her. I don't know what to say. Just say you'll let us help, Nathaniel urged gently. This is about you, Mildred. Your art deserves to shine. As they began to discuss ideas, the atmosphere shifted. Mildred's initial trepidation slowly melted away, replaced by a spark of enthusiasm. Ideas flowed, laughter bubbled, and for the first time, she felt a sense of belonging to a community that valued her, not just for her past, but for her talent. Later that evening, as Nathaniel walked Mildred home, he could sense the change in her. The weight of the impending exhibition still loomed over them, but now it felt more manageable. They shared stories, and for the first time, he saw her smile genuinely. You know, she said, glancing up at him, I was so afraid, but today, with your friends, I felt seen. Good, he replied, his heart swelling with pride for her. That's how it should be. You're not alone in this. As they reached her doorstep, Mildred paused, her expression thoughtful. Thank you, Nathaniel, for believing in me. I'll always believe in you, Mildred. Now let's show the world the artist you truly are. With a nod, she stepped inside, and Nathaniel turned to leave, a renewed sense of hope pulsing through him. He knew they were still facing an uphill battle, but the support of the community and Mildred's courage to embrace her past felt like a powerful force, ready to take on the world. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue across the cluttered office space of Nathaniel Grayson's startup, a palpable tension hung in the air. It was the eve of Mildred Hawthorne's long-anticipated art exhibition, a culmination of months filled with emotional turmoil and personal revelations. Nathaniel leaned against the sleek wooden table, arms crossed, eyes searching Mildred's face for any sign of reassurance. Mildred stood by the window, her silhouette framed by the fading light. She was a picture of grace, yet the shadows beneath her eyes hinted at a deep-seated anxiety. The thought of unveiling her art to the world, once a dream that danced vividly in her mind, now felt like a daunting mountain looming over her. Do you really think it's a good idea? Mildred's voice trembled slightly, breaking the silence that had enveloped them. And what if nobody likes it? What if they just see an old woman trying to cling to dreams that died long ago? Nathaniel pushed himself off the table, moving closer to her. Mildred, you've poured your heart into this. You can't let fear dictate your choices. Remember what we talked about? This is about more than just art. It's about reclaiming your story. Your voice matters. Mildred turned to face him, her expression softening. But what if it hurts too much? What if I open up old wounds? I'm not the same person I was before everything happened. I get that, Nathaniel replied, his tone earnest. But you're stronger than you think. You've survived so much, and now it's time to share your strength with others. You have a gift, Mildred. It's time to let it shine. As he spoke, Mildred's thoughts drifted back to the vibrant colors of her past canvases splashed with life, the thrill of creativity, and the laughter of her daughter echoing in her studio. Each recollection was bittersweet, a reminder of the dreams she had forsaken. Nathaniel, she said quietly, can you promise me something? Anything, he replied, his eyes steady and sincere. Promise me that no matter what happens tomorrow, you'll be there. I don't want to face this alone. Of course, he said firmly. I'll be right by your side. You won't have to do this alone. A flicker of hope ignited in Mildred's heart. She could sense Nathaniel's unwavering support, a lifeline amid the swirling doubts. You've changed so much since I first started working here. You're not just a businessman anymore. You've become a friend. Nathaniel chuckled softly, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his demeanor. Well, I guess you've had that effect on me. You've shown me what really matters beyond the spreadsheets and the bottom line. It's about connection, about stories that need to be told. They shared a moment of comfortable silence, both lost in their thoughts. Nathaniel glanced out the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange. I've been thinking about my own life too. My father, he doesn't approve of my choices, of my career. It's like I'm always trying to meet his expectations, but I've realized how exhausting that is. Mildred raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What does he want from you? Success, wealth, the perfect image of a businessman. He believes that's what defines a man's worth. But every time I achieve something, it never seems to be enough for him. I've always felt like I'm living in his shadow, Nathaniel confessed, his voice heavy with frustration. Mildred's heart ached for him. Nathaniel, you're not your father. You're carving your own path. You've found passion in helping others, in believing in people like me. That's something to be proud of. Maybe, he sighed, but sometimes I question whether I'm doing the right thing. I don't want to disappoint him, yet I feel trapped. It's like I'm stuck in a loop of expectations. Mildred stepped closer, her eyes softening with empathy. You have to choose for yourself, Nathaniel. Life is too short to live for someone else. You need to find what makes you happy, what fulfills you, not what someone else wants. He nodded slowly, absorbing her words. You're right, Mildred. Perhaps I need to start living for me, to let go of the fear of disappointing others. You've got to be brave for both of us, she said with a gentle smile. Tomorrow is about finding our voices, reclaiming our stories. We can't let fear silence us any longer. As they continued to talk, the conversation shifted back to Mildred's art. What if I told you that your story, your journey, is what makes your art so special? Might Nathaniel asked, his voice filled with enthusiasm. People will connect with it, with you. They'll see the beauty in your struggles. Mildred took a deep breath, considering his words. I just hope they don't judge me too harshly. I've spent so many years hiding, afraid of what others would think. What if they only see my age and not the artist I once was? They'll see the person you are now, the courage it takes to step back into the light, Nathaniel reassured her. And if they don't, then they're not worth your time. What matters is that you're finally being true to yourself. Mildred felt a swell of emotion at his encouragement. Thank you, Nathaniel. You've been my anchor through all of this. I don't know what I would do without you. Just promise me that you'll try, he urged, his eyes locking onto hers. Take that leap of faith. You owe it to yourself and to your daughter's memory. With a newfound determination, Mildred nodded, her fear transforming into a flicker of hope. I'll try. For her. For me. And for you. As the last rays of sunlight faded, the room fell into a comforting darkness, illuminated only by the soft glow of the desk lamp. They both stood there, two souls intertwined by their struggles and their dreams, ready to face whatever the next day would bring. In that moment, they realized that they were not alone. They had each other to lean on, to inspire, and to encourage. The path ahead might be riddled with uncertainties, but they were determined to embrace it together. On the day of the exhibition, the sun cast a warm glow over the bustling streets of New York City. Inside the gallery, vibrant colors from Mildred's artwork adorned the walls, each stroke whispering tales of her past, her pain, and her passion. Yet, despite the beauty surrounding her, Mildred felt a heavy weight on her chest. Anxiety gnawed at her, threatening to overshadow the excitement of the day. As she stood in front of her own painting, a large canvas filled with swirling hues of blue and gold. Mildred's hands trembled. She could feel the pulse of the gallery, the buzz of conversations around her, but all she could think about was the gnawing fear that had plagued her for so long. What if they didn't like her work? What if they saw her as just an old woman trying to relive her past? The self-doubt crept in like a shadow, darkening her thoughts. Suddenly, Nathaniel appeared by her side, his presence warm and reassuring. You're here, Mildred, he said, a wide smile breaking across his face. That's a huge step. I don't know, Nathaniel, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. What if they hate it? What if they hate me? They won't, he assured her, reaching out to squeeze her shoulder. You've poured your heart into this. They'll see that. Mildred turned to him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. You don't understand. It's been so long since I put myself out there. I've hidden for years, and now I'm exposed like a raw nerve. Maybe that's exactly what they need to see, Nathaniel said gently. Your vulnerability, your truth. It's what makes your art powerful. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. What if I can't do it? What if I freeze up? I don't want to fail again. You won't fail, he said firmly. You have me and you have your art. That's enough. Just remember, this is about you reclaiming your voice. No one can take that from you. Mildred gazed at him, the truth of his words resonating within her. She had spent so long in the shadows, haunted by her past. But today was different. Today, she had a chance to share the beauty she had almost forgotten existed within her. As the crowd began to gather, Nathaniel stepped away to prepare his speech. Mildred felt a pang of nerves as she watched him. He was so confident, so sure of himself. The contrast between them was stark, yet she also felt a warmth bloom in her chest. Nathaniel's belief in her ignited a flicker of hope. Ladies and gentlemen, Nathaniel began, his voice booming as he stepped onto the small stage set up in the gallery. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate a remarkable artist, Mildred Hawthorne. Mildred's heart raced as she listened. She could hear the pride in his voice, the way he spoke about her with such reverence. It made her feel seen, valued, in a way she hadn't felt in years. Today, we are not just here to admire beautiful paintings. We are here to witness a journey, Nathaniel continued, his gaze sweeping across the audience. Mildred's art is a reflection of her life, her struggles, and her triumphs. It's a testament to resilience, a reminder that it's never too late to follow your dreams. As he spoke, Mildred felt her apprehension slowly ebb away, replaced by a sense of belonging. She was part of something bigger, a narrative that extended beyond her own insecurities. Each piece you see today tells a story, Nathaniel said, gesturing to the vibrant paintings that adorn the walls. And I invite you to take a moment to connect with them, to feel the emotions that Mildred has channeled into her work. The applause that erupted from the crowd sent a wave of warmth through her, and for the first time that day, Mildred felt a surge of courage. She stepped back, allowing herself to take in the moment. The gallery was alive with energy, filled with laughter, admiration, and shared stories. As Nathaniel wrapped up his speech, he glanced towards Mildred, his eyes encouraging her to join him. Now, I would like to invite the artist herself to say a few words. Panic coursed through her veins. The thought of standing in front of all those people, facing their gaze, made her stomach twist. But she could see Nathaniel nodding at her, his expression filled with unwavering support. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, the sound of her heels clicking against the floor echoing in her ears. The crowd quieted, all eyes on her, and suddenly she felt small. But as she looked around, she also saw understanding and warmth reflected back at her. Hello, Mildred started, her voice shaky but growing steadier with each word. Thank you for being here today. This means more to me than I can express. She paused, the words tumbling in her mind, trying to find their place. I've been away from art for so long. I lost my way after an unimaginable loss. I thought I could never create again. As she spoke, snippets of her past flashed through her mind. The joy of painting, the thrill of exhibitions, and the dark days of grief that followed the accident. But Nathaniel reminded me that art is not just about success or recognition. It's about expression, about the stories we carry, and the connections we forge. Mildred felt a wave of courage wash over her as she continued. Each painting here is a piece of my soul. They represent not just my journey, but also the hope that we can rise from our struggles, no matter how insurmountable they seem. Tears glistened in her eyes as she spoke, but they were no longer tears of fear or regret. They were tears of release, of liberation, of finally embracing her truth. Art saved me from the depths of my despair, and I hope that it can touch your hearts as it has touched mine. The crowd was silent, hanging on her every word, and in that moment, she felt a profound connection with them. She wasn't just a woman sharing her art, she was a storyteller, a bridge between her past and their present. As she finished her speech, the applause that erupted was thunderous, echoing through the gallery like a warm embrace. Mildred felt the weight of years of fear lift from her shoulders. She smiled through her tears, overwhelmed by the acceptance and love surrounding her. Nathaniel stepped forward, wrapping her in a hug, his voice a soft whisper. You did it, Mildred. You were incredible. Thank you, she replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you. Together, they stood amidst the crowd, the warmth of community enveloping them. Mildred felt alive, her spirit ignited by the love and support that surrounded her. Today was not just an exhibition. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she could embrace her past while forging ahead into a future filled with hope and creativity. As the exhibition reached its peak, the atmosphere in the gallery was electric. Nathaniel stood at the front, his heart racing as he looked out over the sea of faces illuminated by the soft lights. The walls were adorned with Mildred's breathtaking artwork, each piece a testament to her hidden talent and the emotions she had poured into her craft over the years. The applause reverberated through the room, a warm embrace enveloping them both. Nathaniel felt a surge of pride wash over him as he glanced at Mildred, who stood at the edge of the crowd, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes shining with a mixture of joy and disbelief. Suddenly, the gallery doors swung open, and a figure stepped inside, causing a ripple of murmurs to spread among the guests. Nathaniel squinted, trying to make out the newcomer amidst the throng. As the man moved closer, Nathaniel's heart sank. It was Mildred's ex-husband, George, a tall figure with graying hair and a hesitant expression. The gallery seemed to fall silent as all eyes turned toward him. Mildred's face drained of color, her expression shifting from joy to shock in an instant. Hey, Mildred, George's voice broke through the stillness, raw and unsteady. I didn't think I would find you here or that you would even want to see me again. His eyes were filled with a mix of regret and a hint of vulnerability. Mildred's heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions flooding her senses. She hadn't seen George in over 2 decades. The memories of their life together, both beautiful and haunting, flashed through her mind. Her voice trembled as she replied, "What are you doing here, George?" "I came to see your work," he said, taking a cautious step closer. "I heard about the exhibition. I had to see it for myself. You've always been incredibly talented, and I've missed so much of your life." Mildred's chest tightened. "You left, George. You chose to walk away when I needed you the most." "I know," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm sorry. I've carried that weight for so long. I lost everything when I lost you and our daughter. I've been trying to find my way back ever since." He paused, glancing around the gallery, as if searching for the right words. "I've always believed in your art, Mildred. You were my inspiration, even when I was too proud to admit it." Nathaniel watched the exchange, feeling a mixture of protectiveness for Mildred and curiosity about the man who had once been part of her life. The air grew thick with tension as Mildred struggled with her emotions. "You think you can just show up after all these years and claim you were my inspiration? You abandoned me when I needed you the most." Her voice wavered, tears threatening to spill. George bowed his head, the pain of her words evident on his face. "I was a coward, Mildred. I was afraid. After the accident, I didn't know how to cope. I felt like I couldn't be the man you needed. I didn't deserve you. I still don't. But I've learned to live with that pain, and it's been unbearable without you." Mildred's heart ached at the mention of their daughter, the loss that had shattered her world. "You don't get to speak of her. You weren't there. You didn't have to face the emptiness every day." The bitterness in her voice was palpable, yet beneath it lay a flicker of vulnerability. "I know," he said, tears welling in his eyes. "I've spent years regretting my choices. I lost my daughter, and in losing her, I lost you. Every day since then has been a reminder of that loss. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. For everything." Silence enveloped them as the weight of their shared grief hung heavy in the air. Nathaniel stepped forward, sensing the emotional turmoil. "Mildred, you don't have to respond to him if you're not ready. This is about your journey, your art." Mildred looked at Nathaniel, her heart swelling with gratitude for his unwavering support. But her gaze returned to George, and she saw the man she once loved, now a shadow of his former self. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice softer now. "You left. You made your choice." "I want to make amends," George replied, his voice breaking. "I want you to know that I've changed. I've been working on myself, trying to be a better man. I've faced my demons. I want you to have closure. I want to celebrate your art, your life, even if I'm not a part of it anymore." Mildred's heart raced as she processed his words. The years of pain and resentment bubbled to the surface, but so did a sense of understanding. "You think you can just come back and fix everything with words? It's not that simple, George." "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, his eyes pleading. I just want you to know that you're still in my heart. You always will be. I've carried that love with me, even in my darkest days." As Mildred stared at him, memories flooded back long-lost laughter, shared dreams, and the warmth of their small family before tragedy struck. "I had to bury my dreams to survive," she confessed, her voice trembling. "And now, I'm finally letting them breathe again. I'm showing my art to the world. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'm finding my voice again." George's expression softened, and he took a step back, allowing her space. "That's all I want for you, Mildred. To find your voice. I'm proud of you. I always have been." The atmosphere in the gallery shifted as the guests began to murmur among themselves, captivated by the raw emotion on display. Nathaniel felt a swell of admiration for Mildred. She had faced her past, standing strong and resolute. "Thank you for coming, George," Mildred finally said, her voice steady. "But I need to keep moving forward. I can't dwell in the past anymore. I have my art, my life, and I'm reclaiming them both." George nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I understand. I just wanted to tell you how much you mean to me, even now. You've always been my greatest love." As he turned to leave, the room erupted in applause once more, but this time, it was for Mildred. She wiped her tears away, feeling a sense of release wash over her. She had faced the man who had once broken her heart, and now she could finally heal. Nathaniel stepped closer, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You were incredible," he said softly. "You handled that with grace." Mildred took a deep breath, the weight of the encounter lifting from her. "No, I didn't know I had it in me, but it feels good to let go." "Let's celebrate this moment," Nathaniel suggested, his eyes shining with pride. "You've done something amazing today, Mildred. Your art deserves to be seen, and you deserve to be celebrated." With a newfound sense of strength and purpose, Mildred looked around the gallery at the smiling faces, the art that had once been hidden away, and the journey ahead. "You're right, this is just the beginning." As the applause echoed around them, Mildred knew she had finally found her way back to herself, and in doing so, had inspired not only Nathaniel, but everyone who had come to witness her rebirth.